Okay, in this app, I'm going to take the previous CRUD example and remove access, remove permissions from the front end so that the front end can't get any access, any unwanted access to the data tables. So the first thing we're going to do is take away this can search, edit, and delete permission and give it no access. So now everything we've done on the front end will no longer work. We need to move those functions into some server code. So we'll create a server module and go back and look at all the functions that we've created so far to access the data table from the front end. So for Form 1, we have got, let's switch over to code. The first thing we did was set the repeating panels items to the results of a search of the PEEPs database. We're going to take that and stick it in a server module. We'll call that maybe get all rows. So the first thing we want to do is create an Anvil server callable function, and we'll define that as get all rows. And so what we'll do is we'll just return that same search that we had on the front end. And from the front end, instead of calling that search directly, we will do an anvil.server.call of the get all rows function. That will now load the database from the server. Okay, next thing I want to do is call a server function to add a new row. So let's put this code in the server module, and we'll call this add row, def add row. And we'll do the same thing. We'll just actually, we don't need to return that. We're just calling that function, and we're calling that search in a server module. And here we'll do an anvil.server.call. You know what we haven't done? We haven't made this one callable, so decorate that. Now I can go back to the front end and call that function. Let's try this again. Call, and this time we'll do add row. And we can do the same sort of thing when we clicked the button to delete on our template in our repeating panel. That ran this code down here, which deleted an item from the database. So what we're going to need to do is get rid of that and create another server function. Let's see, we will call that server function, let's see here. Let's call it delete row. And what we're going to do is pass that function self.item, which is the data that's on this repeating row. So let's go over, make a server module function, call that thing delete row. Again, we're going to make that Anvil server callable. Call this thing delete row. And we're going to pass it the item row, which I'll just call ITM here. And if we just call delete on that, that will delete the the current items. Let's go back here now and call that function. So again, we'll do anvil.server, anvil.server.call. And this time delete the row. And I'm just going to reload the page here to get that to refresh. That will reload the entire database. And so let's see what else we need to do here. We've now got a sort DB function, which we're going to want to copy over to the database. Let's see. We'll call that maybe search. And so what we're going to need to do is take this entire database query and move that over to the server. Okay, let's see. So we'll call this make another Anvil server callable function. And we'll define that as search. And what we're going to do there is copy and paste most of this code that we had to search the database. And this time we're going to need to pass it some parameters. We're going to need to pass it all of these values that were previously taken directly from the form. So we can't call self drop down here. So let's call that was drop down 1. That was the first sort column that we searched for. The next thing we did down here was the true false column. So let's call that true false. Try this again. True false. And then sort 2. And we had sort 3. And then we had some search text that we passed. So that was all of the things that we sent to this database search. So now we can replace those names here with these variable representations of the values that have been passed to the server function. And we have to go back to our form. So I guess we called that search 2. And we need to assign or pass these variables to this function when we call it. This was sort 3. And we had this we called search text. Okay, got that from the text that was on a text field. So search text. And make sure we got our commas in there that we need them. Oops, that's actually needed. Okay, that looks good. Let's go back and go to the form. And now we need to call this function. And let's see, so we're going to do another Anvil server call. Anvil.server.call. And what did we call that one? We called that one search. And let's put this all on separate lines because we have a whole bunch of parameters we're going to be sending. So next, we're going to send it the remember the call setup here. So the first thing we sent it was drop down. So we took drop down 1. That was the first sort. And then the next thing, I'm going to get the selected value from that. And then the next thing we grabbed was the drop down to selected value. So we had the true or false. That was in drop down to selected value. Let's clean this up a little bit, put everything on separate lines. And then we sent it the second sorted value. That was another drop down. So self drop down, second sorted value, and we want the selected value there. And let's clean this up, make it look a little prettier. And the next thing we just sent it was the third drop down selected value. And then finally, we clean this up a little bit. We sent it the text from the field. Text. Let's try it again. Self.text box 1, and we want the text from that. There we go. And that looks like it matches. Let's try running this, see what we get so far. So we've already loaded the database. That was the first function that we moved over to the server. All right. Okay, great. So now we are getting a search. Let's see if we get something here that works. The search appears to be working. Let me try this again. And actually, it does not appear to be working. So we've done something. I've done something wrong with the calls here. Let's check and see. We're setting the repeating value items to what's returned from the Anvil server call. We're getting the values from the search function, and we're sending to the search function the sort 1 selected value, the drop down 2 selected value, the sort 2 selected value, the sort 3 selected value, and this the text box 1 text. That looks good. So let's go over and check out the server module and make sure that we've got this whole thing set appropriately. Let's see here. Search. So we called that first drop down sort 1. We called the second drop down TF. We called the third one sort 2, fourth one sort 3, and the last one search text. Now we're searching. Oh, we didn't return anything. Okay, I'm gonna try it again. It didn't return anything. So we did the search properly. I'll check this just to make sure. Let's run through it once. We're sorting the tables by, the first sort is by the sort 1 column and ascending according to the second drop down. Next sort order is by the sort 2 column. The next sort order is by sort 3, and then we're searching for search text. Okay, that looks good. We just didn't return the values. So let's give that a shot. So we've got most of this app converted now over to a bunch of functions that runs on the server. And let's do a search and see if that's working properly. See if I've got some data here I can search for. Values that is now working. Let's go back and see what else we've got here. It's running properly. Oh, good. Let's search for Z. Okay, that looks like it's working. And if we add a line, are we getting, yep, we're getting a new line. And if we delete a line, let's see here, positional argument. Okay, so got a little issue here. Let's try this again. we're calling that function. Do we need to send it? We do. We need to send it um, the row that we want to delete. So that's going to be self.item. Okay, so that should run now. Let's fix that. So we called the function properly, and the function was doing the same thing. We just didn't send it the row, which on each row of that repeating panel, the items that we've assigned to it when the app starts is referred to as self.item. So now if I do this, we are sending that self.item value to the server, and it's working. Okay, so now the only thing that we don't have configured here is previously everything was set up to do write back. So if I try and type and edit the values, we're going to say permissions denied because we have set that table to not be able to um, be written from the front end. So this is going to be just a little bit more complex. What we're going to need to do is, first of all, go into the design, and on each of these data bindings, we're going to have to uncheck write back because we can no longer write back to that database. So let's undo that. That made the front end stuff very, very easy to do when we're prototyping with a simple setup like we had before. Let's do this. And okay, so we've got everything we need there. There are no write backs. I'm going to add another button here that will allow us to edit and do a similar sort of thing. We'll make this nice and small so it's not taking up too much space. I'll give it a little icon, get rid of the button to text. Let's give it an icon that looks like a save icon. The floppy disk icon looks good. Okay, so now what we need to do is when we click on that save icon, we're going to have to write a function. And what we're going to do is pass each of these values to a server function. So let's make that server function first. We'll call it edit row. Let's edit this a little bit so it looks prettier. Okay, so another Anvil server, callable. And I'll call this about edit row. That should work. And so what we're going to have to do is send this. Let's think about this for a second. We're going to have to send the item because we want to know which row that self.item refers to the database row that's used in that repeating panel. So let's see, we're going to be sending it. We'll call that ITM again. And then we're going to be sending a name value, an address. These are the values that are in the fields and in the calendar widget, and the date picker widget, and so on. Kids, we'll call that. We had kids. We had what else? Notes, and we had birthday. Okay, so now what we can do is just run the update method. Let's see here. Update method on that. That should work. And all we have to do is send it. Let's see. For name, that's going to equal name. There we go. And our address. That's going to equal address. And kids will equal kids. Oops. So these values that we're setting are values, are fields in the database, are columns in the database, and what's coming up here are the values that we've passed as parameters for the function, arguments for the function. All right, today equals birthday. Okay. Update that whole thing, and we can make this look a little prettier if we want. Okay, let's see if Anvil likes what we've done here. Okay, run it. Oh, no, what we haven't done is actually call that function. So let's go back here to the item template and think about how we have to call that function now. So obviously we're going to need Anvil call, and what do we call that? Edit row. Let's make this look pretty. Okay, and what we're sending it to, let's think about this for a second. We have to send, first thing we need to send is the row. So that's self.item. That is the database row that we're going to be updating. Make it pretty. Let's see. Then the next thing we're going to be sending is the text from each of these, the text from each of the text fields and the text boxes, and also the date. So the first is going to be self.text box one dot text. The next is going to be self. The address was in text area, so that was text area one dot text. And let's see, we had the same sort of thing. We had self.text box two dot text. Let's prettify this really quick. And after text box two, we had text area two. So text area two, that's good. And I need the text from that. Come on, text area two, text, and finally the calendar picker, so that, or the date picker. So that was self.date picker one dot date. Okay, that should be everything to satisfy the function we've created. Let's run it. I'm running on a very, very slow netbook here, but I should work here. First of all, let's create a new. And see if we get that updated. Good. Okay, so let's just add some random data here. And pick a date. And see if our save function works. Ta-da. You know, what we do need to do actually is reload the page, and let's give the user a little acknowledgement that we've done the right thing. We'll alert them that it's been saved. And then we'll open that form again. Let's try it one more time. We should see the edits we just made. Let's try this one more time. My little netbook computer is struggling to keep up, but that's not a problem with Anvil. That's just a problem with my little netbook. Okay, so look, those are our edits. It looks like we've got what we needed saved. So let's do this again. I think at this point we've got a fully working database system. Let's try TTTTT, just a bunch of T's. and then 3 for T, and then TTT, and yeah, let's just save it as is. Okay, so now this should reload and put the TTT in alphabetical order. Yep, there we go. And let's make another edit, put a date in, click on save, and we should be good to go now. If we open this again, everything should be saved. And that's it. So although that took a little bit of time to do in real time as I moved all the functions out and wrote them by hand, that's the real work that's involved with creating this sort of thing. Of course, now you can use this as a template and reuse it as you need. And of course, you can apply the grid template that I gave you guys earlier. And we should be able to do some searching here. See if anything contains a 1. Nothing contains a 1. Let's try TTT, see if that comes up. Good, that is working. And if I do too many T's, that should not come up. Good, all working. Let's sort this by address, make sure our sorts are working. And make sure also that this is working. There we go. Okay, so now everything should come up in sorted order according to address, and it is. And if I sort by name, and then by, let's see, we'll do it by kids. So we should get a whole bunch of ASDFs here first, and then they should be sorted according to the kids' numbers. That's great. So we have all the ASDF first, and everything else is in alphabetical order according to address. And then when the same, or sorry, according to name, then when the same names are all listed together, those are sorted according to the kids column. That's working. And if we turn that backwards, that first column should be sorted backwards, and it is properly good, and everything is in proper order there. And we can create a new item. We can delete that new item, and we can also edit an item. Put a couple of Z's back on this first one, save it. It is saved properly now, and that's it. So CRUD plus search and sort, some fairly deeply useful search and sort options. So filtering and sorting according to columns is needed. Again, still just a few lines of code. I think we're getting into a couple dozen lines of code, but now this is a real production CRUD template that you can use. Apply the same, the way you saw in the previous app, apply the same sort of logic and the same functions to grids, and you can make those grids side scrollable. So we have just a few functions here. Everything's running in the server now, so this data table is now secured. It's safe. No one can get to it except in ways that you want to allow, because all of the database interactions occur on the server, and no one can adjust those server functions on the front end by adjusting their front end code. The data table is now accessible. The permissions do not allow any reading or writing from the front end. Okay, so that's the basis for so many useful, common kinds of apps. Hopefully that's helpful in seeing how to move those basic templates onto the server.